Thank you for staying with us. Now let's look at cyber security. Well, everyone is on the internet these days, so cybersecurity is a very important conversation, and I suggest that you pay attention.
Get your pen and paper.
The National Cybersecurity Policy and Strategy, NCPS, of 2021 is said to be a framework that aims to strengthen cybersecurity, governance, and coordination, and foster a trusted cyber environment that optimizes Nigeria's cybersecurity readiness and coordination capacities towards addressing the nation's cyber risk exposure. I'm sure you heard about government's systems being hacked. That should make us sit up, wouldn't you say? The new policy is a review of the 2014 edition of the same, designed to realign the nation's cybersecurity efforts to effectively confront the dynamic and emergent nature of threats in the country's cyberspace. With over 104 million active internet users, wow, 104 million of us.
How many countries is that?
Good question. Coupled with the local innovations that have made Nigeria one of the leading digitally connected countries on the continent and the prevailing challenges that come with cyber penetration, this review has become very important. Well, my question is very important. How important is very important? Now, that question we're going to put to our panel this morning. We are glad to have on the panel this morning a tech consultant, Dayo Adesoya. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you with us. And we also have the founder, Open Innovation Access, Shola Adekanye. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Now, they say that there are about 104 million of us Nigerians on the internet at one time or another in the course of the day. How can we protect ourselves from being attacked? And attack is in quotes. Mr. Adesoya.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was hoping that you directed that question at me because it's really something that is mind-boggling when we begin to think about what the public needs to do to stay safe. In my opinion, I think that the public cannot stay safe alone by themselves without the help of government and the right policies in place. For us, we believe in Nigeria that going forward, that we need to be able to have policies that allow the private sector to be able to collaborate with the public sector and ensure that all hands are on table to provide public safety. We also think that, a collaboration with the international community, intelligence sharing, and the rest of them are things that we need to look into critically to ensure that we are staying at par with what we need to do to ensure that, we stay safe as a people in Nigeria.
Well, Mr. Adekoya, I'm pretty sure that you would want to respond to that as well. But perhaps to begin with, you may want to go elementary with us. There are several of us who have very expensive phones. I'm pretty sure that some have already pre-ordered iPhone 14.
Pro Max.
Pro Max. Well, guess what? They use it for phone calls, texts, camera, and that's it.
Full stop.
And of course, our emails are loaded on the phones, but the last thing on many people's mind is security of their, infrastructure and all of that. Beyond the basic of your passwords and all those things, many people don't seem to know much about cybersecurity. So please give us a little understanding, Mr. Adekoya, of what cybersecurity really is.
Well, I mean, to put it in layman terms, cybersecurity is really just protection on the internet. I mean, that's as basic as it can be. Unfortunately, that in itself is not all-inclusive and not exhaustive, because there are multiple ways in which attacks could come via the internet. One thing that we are starting to see, and I'm by no means talking as an expert. Open Innovation Access, we're just investing in cybersecurity companies, and we're investing in one company at the moment. We prefer to tackle cybersecurity at the individual level. Like you mentioned, you have a mobile phone with you. Unfortunately, with the increase in mobile technology, cyber attacks are only going to increase with that, because cyber attacks are just ways that criminals attack people online by disguising these attacks in forms of what they call phishing. But we're not going to go into the technical terms, but sending certain links that would release viruses onto your property, either phones or emails, and then as a result, stealing all your information. It could be financial, it could be personal information, and anything else. So in that case, without the necessary awareness on the part of the user of this mobile technology, anything could come through the phone. Now, one thing that we've noticed is in the past, cyber attacks will come via emails. Now, everyone is smart. There's antivirus on emails, right? So the antivirus will automatically kick in. Immediately something comes through your email and scan your phone or scan your computers for you. But what we've also noticed recently is that there are more attacks coming via SMS now, and they are disguised, because banks send you text. Many institutions will send SMS to inform you of one thing or the other about updates or anything else about their organization. Cyber criminals have also devised means to attack people via SMS, and that's one area that hasn't really been protected enough, I would say. So the level of attacks is only going to increase, unfortunately. Like I said, with the increase in mobile technology, cyber security is just, how do we ensure that we safeguard ourselves as we get on the internet? The solution is not getting on the internet. We have to get on the internet, because if we want to be an advanced economy, if we want to be a digital economy, we have to get on the internet. So that solution is not getting on the internet. The question is, how do we protect ourselves while on the internet?
Well, so even telling yourself that you're not going to get online simply because you're afraid of being attacked is like saying you're not going to get out of the house simply because you don't want to be hit by a car. But to perhaps a further understanding for people, how vulnerable are we in terms of awareness? I think the awareness quotient, I think, is something that we need to even ask questions around, Mr. Adekoye. How aware are the 104 million active internet users that my colleague here mentioned earlier? How many of these people are aware of such a thing as online protection for themselves? And
the level of awareness.
Yeah, go ahead.
The level of awareness is so low, it's mind-boggling.
Whoa.
The solution the startup that we invested in is called SMS Protect. And pretty much it loads a mobile application on your phone and detects this for you. Whenever a malicious attack comes through SMS, it informs you or it notifies you. Even with that, we still get reports almost every single day of people getting texts and just not paying enough attention, or being aware of the possibility of an attack coming through an SMS. So you still see people falling for such attacks. And it's not so much about people falling for the attacks. The level of awareness is low. So people might even be preoccupied with other things, and something comes through their phone and they're just not paying attention, because these attacks, mind you, these attacks are not so obvious. A cyber attack is not going to come with the label cyber attack. it's coming disguised. So when it comes to your phone, you don't even know it's a cyber. You don't even know it's an attack. I mean, it comes with embedded links. And how do you know that link actually contains a malicious, virus? You don't know for sure. So most times people fall for that attack. They click on that. So on one end, the level of awareness is very low. If you ask a layman out there, the understanding around cybersecurity is so low that many people don't have any clue around like what it means, talk less of protecting themselves against it. Mm. So this mobile app that we released out there, even with that, people still tend to want to fall for the attacks because the mobile application notifies you when an attack comes to your phone. So you are supposed to make a decision at that point if whether or not to click on any links or to even open that SMS or just delete it altogether. But people still fall for that. Interesting. You still find people falling for that because it's awareness is low, but then the consciousness of it is also very, very not there yet because it's new to us.
If awareness is low, how can consciousness be any better? Well, let me ask you, Mr. Adesoya. The reason we are actually bringing this up is just for this, because, I mean, just as you said, these things are going to get only worse. But let that be that information out there to everyone watching that these things do happen. These things do exist. I think that is the beginning that we need to look at. Mr. Adesoya, so now we know these. My colleague mentioned the other time of government's online infrastructure being attacked. We heard in the course of the week as well of a higher institution whose website was also attacked. And that attack presupposes vulnerability of the students, vulnerability of their parents' data, and, of course, vulnerability of the school itself. We've heard of attacks on banks in the same country. So what do people need to know? How do you identify an attack? We'll come to the part where government has its work cut out from the National Cybersecurity Policy and Strategy that Alero talked about the other time. But let this awareness begin. What do people need to know? How do you recognize a cyber attack?
Thank you very much. So if we begin to dig down on cyber attacks, you'll be surprised that there is more to talk about on the non-technical side compared to the technical side.
I'll go with the non-technical side.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I was just going to dig down on the non-technical side, because on that side, in the world of cybersecurity, there's something we call social engineering, which is what the average Nigerian calls 419. Those things do not come with links. Those things, they reach out to you via the internet and try to cajole you to be able to get certain details from you. That's on the personal side. On the corporate side, what's the culture of work like for the tech experts that are supposed to be manning these systems? Because the culture is very dismissive of the impact of cybersecurity, or cyber breaches, as it were. When you begin to look at the cost of recovery, and you begin to look at the cost of, the embarrassment of the brand, and the data of the students, and the customers that are involved, it's way more expensive than anything else. So I think that at the basics, we need to change the culture around believing that, it's just data. Because many of these organizations pick up alerts before these things happen, and they decide to just ignore or think it's just a hoax. Having said that, when you begin to dig further into the reasons why these things happen on a large scale, you find out that they're using softwares that have just been outdated. softwares that they're supposed to do regular updates on, and they've forgotten to do those things, or they just ignore them. Also, the cultures of using very, very easy and guessable passwords. These are things that, we need to change at the culture level,
well,
at the personal level. And
my apologies, Mr. Adesanya. I'd like you to be a little more direct with people. A sizable number of us watching now are holding our phones or our tabs or sitting in front of their laptops. Can you tell people some things that they need to do now to protect themselves? As I said, we'll get back to the government side, but how can people begin now to protect themselves right now on their phones? I'm pretty sure that once you start to talk about it, some will pick up their phones and start obeying the order, so to speak.
So two things. First things first will be how do you fetch information on the internet? How does your information come through? What do you do on there? And how do you identify what's real and what's not real? Majority of the times, 90% of the times, the information that brings you harm are those ones that sound too good to be true. All of those offers that sound too good to be true. Something that happened to my sister a couple of weeks ago, and she was trying to get support from a bank's page on Instagram. And while she was there, right in the comments, somebody put in there saying, contact us on this WhatsApp number and get support. And just that little message, and not guided by the bank, got her to contact them, and they were able to clean up all the money in her account. So at the basic level, you want to ensure that you're checking every information you pick out on there, either via your mobile phone or via your computer, to ensure that it's actually the right thing. Secondly, try to find out what's your mobile phone capable of that you do not know. That's very, very key, because there are a lot of capabilities that your mobile phone has that you don't know that keeps you vulnerable. So I think that, at the basic, try to understand your mobile phone a little bit more, know what it can do, and know the areas of vulnerabilities. All of this information are available on the internet.
Okay, Mr. Adekoye, well, I say that you have been very, very conservative, Mr. Adesanya, but then you also don't want to scare us, which is understandable. Well, Mr. Adekoye, so let's go to the corporate side, which Mr. Adesanya began to talk about. Corporate vulnerabilities. A few years ago, a friend who is also in your space told me about one or two banks that he actually got to the back end. Interestingly, he said he was an ethical hacker or something. Got to the back end of the bank and told them, guys, I could clean up, but he didn't do it simply because he's an ethical hacker. I know he doesn't do it because he still pays rent. Otherwise, he would not be paying rent right now. So what are the vulnerabilities that, I think Mr. Adesanya spoke about, the slow response of some corporate organizations. My Alarom talked about government organizations. And I think if you can help us to understand that, what are the vulnerabilities that these corporate organizations have? Because that's perhaps the reason why a significant number of government processes are not digitized. What are the vulnerabilities you see? So
the main, I would say the largest or the biggest vulnerability is the people. Because many times, probably, 8 out of 10 times, attacks will come through to an individual within the organization, either someone within the IT department that might receive something and then accidentally clicks on something, or something that comes through. And I'll give you a scenario that happened. An employee of the bank receives an email. There was a link in that email, that they clicked on the link. What that did was to release some viruses on their computer and slowed it down. Now they call IT department. IT department comes and logs in onto that computer with their administrative password. What that did was to release that virus, create the access for that virus to travel up to what they call the domain controller. Wow. Once it reached the domain controller, it pretty much took over the entire enterprise from there. Wow. So the organization is only as strong as its weakest link. And, unfortunately, human beings are the strongest and also the weakest link within the organization, because it only takes for an attack to come to an organization, to an individual, either an employee or maybe an administrator within that organization. Now, what are some of the things that the organization can do? Well, they need to conduct simulations. They need to conduct these simulations to raise the awareness and the consciousness within that organization by sending these dummy malicious attacks or emails or texts to employees, and then now keep track of how many people actually fall for those attacks, or for those, will fall for those attacks, dummy attacks within that simulation. And then they can now know who to raise the awareness, or how much awareness they need to raise within that organization. I personally still believe that, banks or organizations should hire those ethical hackers. Here in Las Vegas, every year they will have something called hackathon. And that hackathon is where the ethical hackers will come in and then hack into any system. And organizations will actually go there and hire those people, because if you know how to get in, you know how to protect it. So you know how to protect it against your colleagues that will want to get it. So I think organizations should hire some of these guys, because some of these guys already know the different methods and means with which these attackers would use. And then also, I believe strongly that organizations need to prioritize cybersecurity. One of the things that they don't do is nearly 90% of all cyber attacks don't get reported. Probably for reasons that Mr. Additional also mentioned. They don't get reported. So how do you know how to protect against what you have not reported? Because you don't know the methods. You have not given enough information to cybersecurity experts to be able to devise means to start, protecting against some of these attacks. So if they prioritize, they report any attacks, then people can start to devise means to protect organizations and enterprises. Then hire cybersecurity experts and pay competitively. What we've also seen is that there are a lot of unfilled positions in cybersecurity, a lot of them, about 100,000 open positions out there. People are not even qualified. Well, why are they not qualified? Is it just that, the people just don't want to, is it so hard that people just couldn't study enough to get certified in it? No, it's not so hard. It's the salary. Some people don't want to go into it because it's not as competitive as AI or robotics. That's what every organization is prioritizing. So if you prioritize robotics and AI, then guess what people will do? People will go learn AI and robotics, and they would abandon cybersecurity. So I think organizations need to prioritize cybersecurity, knowing that everything could be protected or lost through cyber attacks. So you need gatekeepers to be there all the time. But how do you get gatekeepers in? You pay them competitively. They would not run into all these other disciplines, but they will come into cybersecurity. So it's all, it's a mix of different. Of course, there's also the password authentications, where organizations should, maybe have a policy where employees have to change their passwords frequently. But anyone that has a device that belongs to that organization is vulnerable at any point in time, either within the office environment or at home. So it's really just, enforcing a policy that forces people to change passwords regularly. So because passwords change, then, the links or the door to the enterprise could be broken by changing the password. So those are some of the ways that they can protect against it. But the enterprise is as vulnerable and as exposed as its weakest link. Unfortunately, people are the strongest and also the weakest link within the organization.
Mr. Adesanya, you both have told us a lot, some of which is actually scary, because there are many of us, of those 104 million people who use the internet in Nigeria, I'm sure maybe about 80 million of them will be dinosaurs, or people who just use their phones for what my partner referred to earlier: make call, receive, send text, take pictures, and that's it. But government has gone on to put together this policy, which is supposed to help all of us. So, Mr. Adesanya, please, Where is the thrust of this policy?
Well, again, look, it falls down to awareness of the policy, of the breaches, for the whole public to know. We've mentioned about 100 and something million people being on the internet. But when you look at regulatory bodies as well, what are they doing to ensure that these private organizations or these public-facing organizations are doing what they need to do when they have breaches? Adekoye mentioned a while ago talking about reporting these breaches. When you look at how these breaches are reported, you know, in the corporate landscape, many organizations don't report it because they feel it's going to bring them some brand weakness. But then at the end of the day, that helps the public in no way, because they continue to think that they're secure. Meanwhile, somebody has carted their data away. They've gone to the black web to sell their data. So on the government side, what I think they can do is to put policies in place that ensure that these organizations report these breaches when they happen. That's number one. Number two, how do we ensure that conversations like these are things that we have on a daily basis, either on TV or on other places that the average person can have access to? Because people can watch this program today and they're aware, but then in a week's time, what happens? It's supposed to be a continuous awareness. Something needs to happen from all stakeholders, from government, from the private sector, and from the individual side as well. When we also talk about information sharing, there has to be information sharing. Policies need to be in place to ensure that when company A is breached, they report what has happened so that the rest of the companies can quickly see what's happening and they can take precaution against those things. The fact that there is the competitive landscape is preventing these organizations from sharing data with each other, those things are helpful to the hackers. The hackers like that because when they hit company A and they're able to, get them from the areas of vulnerability and they make away with whatever it is, then they can easily go to company A and use the same structure till they hit a lot of companies like that. And then when you look at how they even respond to these cyber threats or cyber breaches, you begin to wonder, like, are we intentionally enabling these people? I'll be very honest with you, in the Nigerian environment, I still do not think that we have enough hackers that are very, very, technically enabled. And what do I mean? The average hacker is someone who is very, very proud. They would hit your infrastructure just for the sake of it, just to prove a point. They pick all of this data and put it out. Most of those that we still have in the Nigerian landscape are individuals that are motivated financially. And when you look at those kind of people, they don't stop. They don't stop. So I think all of these things need to be put together in a framework and put it to the government bodies for them to have policies that ensure that we're having information sharing, number one, and also to continue to collaborate with the international community, ensure that all of this information that they pick on the international community is spread around at the quickest possible way, and also have programs like this that continue to ensure that the public is educated.
In parentheses.
Sorry, may I say something? May I add something to what Mr. Adesanya just said?
Yes, please go ahead.
So if you look at the 5 pillars of the policy, you'd see that pillar number three is identify, investigating people and bringing them to justice. Is there justice against people, cyber criminals today? That would be the question. Because if there's no consequence, then why should people stop?
Yeah.
So if there's consequence, then it will curtail it. People will stop because they know if they get caught, then there's consequence. So they would, some will refrain from it. But I think that would also automatically just kind of, reduce the volume of attacks, because today the volume of attacks is growing by the day. We get reports all the time, and they're mostly coming via SMS to the individuals. And I don't know how the government cybersecurity policies can really help the individual, maybe organizations, but at the individual level, I don't know how it helps at that level. But if there is a legal framework that brings people to justice, then it also curtails it. It makes people refrain from just getting into this act.
Mr. Adesanya, in parentheses, if I were a hacker, for instance, what would make me decide I want to be an ethical hacker? If I can break into people's systems, either for money or for the heck of it, why should I decide that I can do it, but I will not do it?
Thank you very much. Let me set the scene here, right? There are three basic types of hackers. We have the black hat hackers, which are the bad ones, right? The ones that we're talking about today. We have the white hat hackers, which are the good ones, the ethical hackers. And then right in the middle, we have something that we call gray hat, which is someone who might be a bad or a good person. And then based on what they want on a day-to-day basis, they just stay gray, right? So an ethical hacker will most likely stay ethical if we begin to double-click on some of the things that, Mr. Adekoya has said. If it becomes financially rewarding to be on the ethical side, then people will stay ethical, right? If it's not so financially rewarding, then they begin to look at the other side. And when they look at the other side and they see that the legal framework, like we have said, is letting them go. If you look at the laws in Nigeria, for example, once somebody is being prosecuted for cybersecurity crimes, they also have very, very little fines that they can pay to get off and not serve jail time. That's a loophole that I think that they need to fix as well.
Well, essentially, you're saying, gentlemen, that government has its job cut out for it, but government must be willing to do the job, because we've looked at it almost elementarily this morning, with deliberately so, because if we do not have the people to run the policies and the laws and execute them as intended by the law, then there is no point having the law. That's essentially what we're saying, Mr. Adekoya, right?
Yes.
Well, yes. Well, yes and no. Okay. Yes, in the sense that the policy doesn't help the individual without significant awareness.
Okay.
If the government is not doing everything to put billboards out there, to run commercials all the time, or advertisement on TV, creating this awareness from schools, then the policy itself is too high level for the individual on the street to even be bothered about that.
All right.
I mean, what would the individual...
Sorry, we're completely out of time. I just wanted to take your comment on that. Mr. Adesanya.
Thank you very much. So I also share the same thoughts, right? But, just to add to that, I think that, we need to come back to the idea of hiring the people that fit the job, and not just that somebody sent me. When you have skilled people, holding positions that make them stakeholders in a cybersecurity environment, then maybe we can get some work done and not just dashing all our cybersecurity experts to the diaspora.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Dayo Adesanya, tech consultant. And we also had Mr. Shola Adekanye, founder, Open Innovation Access. Thank you very much for coming to educate us this morning. Well, you succeeded in scaring us a bit as well.
No, more than educating.
It's all right. We learned.
Educating you. Let your phone do more than just phone, call, text, email, and WhatsApp.
I hope you all heard that at home. Let your phone do more than call, text, picture, and what else?
Anything else.
There's more to it than all of that. So please get educated to protect yourself.
Let me just quickly also remind you what something Mr. Adesanya said. Get information about your phone.
All the things your phone can do. So that if you need to block some of them, do. Thank you very much. We'll be right back in just a moment. Stay with us.